We have no reason to hate these people, but we don't want them here. Today we were expected to have Dr. Susanna First, who is the deputy leader of the Austrian Freedom Party, the FPO. But on the 30th of September, start again, 30th of September, they had their general election, and the FPO came romping in with the highest number of seats, the highest number of votes. And so this was a great victory for a traditionalist conservative party. And so now the Austrian president has asked the FPO to enter into talks with some of the other parties and towards forming a coalition. I think it's probably unlikely that the left will allow that to happen, but we shall see. We don't know. So I'm going to comment on some of the things that she was going to speak on. And then after me, we will have another riveting speaker. So, firstly, I presume you all know about the Austrian Freedom Party. It's been going now for, 70 years at least. And they are a traditionalist party, and they are completely opposed to non-European immigration. And the reason for that is because Austria is a tiny country with quite a small population, and they're not in NATO, to their great credit, and they espouse the concept of remigration, which in English is probably repatriation. I should say that the Traditional Britain Group continues to support the 1970 Conservative Party declaration that they would halt immigration and that they would encourage repatriation, voluntary repatriation, state-assisted if necessary. Of course, with this fake Conservative Party, this was all talk and they did nothing. In fact, after they made that pledge and won the election on that, they then let in the East African Asians, instead of telling them to go back whence they came, to the subcontinent. So, back to the FPO. The FPO, as you know, took virtually 30% of the vote. And they have decided that anyone that they believe, if they were in government, they would set up a commission that would decide that anyone that had not assimilated into the Austrian way of life, 100%, would have to be expelled. They would have to be sent back to the country that they came from, or to a country of their choice, but they wouldn't be allowed to stay in Austria. And they have set up a role in the party, what we'd probably call a shadow minister role, to put forward FPO policies on this front. And the party leader, Herbert Kickle, said last year that those who refuse to integrate should lose their citizenship and be expelled. I think it's really straightforward, actually, that this is their policy and this is what they're pursuing, and I think this is why they got 30%. This is why they got 30% of the vote. Even the Austrian People's Party, which is a fake conservative party like our Conservative Party, didn't get anything like what they got. So I'm also going to look at the AFD. As you know, we heard this morning from the AFD, and there was a big kerfuffle in the media, the left-wing media, of course, because that's almost all that the media is, and about the AFD, some AFD people taking part in a private meeting in Berlin, where the discussion was on remigration. Germany has, as you may or may not know, a record number of aliens in the country, and they're not happy with it, and the AFD is not happy with it, and rightly so. And its remigration has become commonplace talking point for all conservatives across Europe. The AFD have a youth wing, and they have a deportation-themed online video game. and it's called the German Rescuer. And it begins with a voice asking, "Can we still save Germany?" And it's modelled on the well-known puzzle game Candy Crush Saga. And German Rescuer urges players to rescue the country from chaos and from mass immigration. And it has an avatar of a black man to be put on a plane for deportation. It has successfully matched rainbow flags that connotate gay pride convert to German flags that yield national pride instead. And this game was created by the AFD's youth organization. One of the leaders of this youth organization in Brandenburg, Anna Leisten, said, "Hardly any young person would post the state election program in a WhatsApp group." The German media have been calling this video a remigration hit. and they said it's a far right, you know, we all know about the far right. Everybody's far right that doesn't agree with the far left. And they said it has a far right dance track which imagines the deportation of migrants from Germany en masse. And so they too, the AFD, want to see remigration. They said it's unacceptable to have 20 million aliens in the country. You will know that our great Prime Minister that we never had, Enoch Powell, constantly referred to aliens. It was very rare that he mentioned immigrants. He always said aliens, because the Oxford English Dictionary states specifically that an alien is someone who does not belong here. And these people do not belong here. And people say, "You're racist. You're a fascist. And they say, because you hate these people. No. But that's where they go wrong. We don't hate these people. We have no reason to hate these people. But we don't want them here. That is because this is our natural homeland, our national homeland and our natural homeland. And this is the same across Europe. This is the old continent. It's not a place you migrate to. These people have natural homelands all over the world. They shouldn't be coming here. We are not the closest place under the United Nations Refugee Charter to emigrate to. It specifically states that you can only go to the nearest, closest, stable, free country. And Great Britain, off the coast of the continent, you couldn't go any further unless you went to Iceland. We are not the first free country. And we don't want these people here because it's not possible for them to assimilate because they come from totally different cultures. And they live in ghettoized societies. They all live together and they don't really want to be British. This is self-evident. I had a Pakistani shopkeeper opposite my London flat. Very nice bloke he was. I used to chat to him a lot. His wife used to come in. He'd been here for, 25 years. His wife used to come in the garb, They'd all speak in their local lingo, no effort to speak English. Their children used to come in. They all spoke Pakistani as well. Is this an example of people assimilating? Of course not. Of course not. And most importantly, they belong to a totally 1000% alien faith that will never connect with our culture, our heritage, and our people, because it is so different, it is so alien. We only have to look in the papers every day and we see robbings, drug gangs, stabbing epidemics. You name it, we've got it. The shocking stabbings in Portsmouth by a Rwandan, instead of... Sorry? Southport, what did I say? Just testing. So the thing is that we shouldn't have to put up with this. No, we shouldn't. Why are we putting up with this? We are putting up with this because we have traitors at Westminster. And they get elected and they go down there and they sit in their little box and they're all part and parcel of a little clique, regardless of which party they are, because they're all parties of the left. It's just on a sliding scale. And we need a radical government. Now, this awful woman in the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, she's on a collision course now with 17 member states demanding tougher legislation to eject asylum seekers. And one Brussels-based policy analyst has warned that action is needed to prevent a crisis. Well, I would have thought the crisis is already here, but there you are. But the European Union needs to improve the deportation rate. And I see that 17 different countries across Europe have all said to the EU that something's got to be done. We've got to be empowered by the EU to carry out deportations while respecting fundamental rights. Well, I've got no idea what these fundamental rights are, because rights are generally a political invention. And they started with the French Revolution and they've rolled onwards. And so that's just a load of garbage. What they really need to be empowered to do is to send people back to wherever it was that they came from. Czech Republic, Croatia, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Italy, Luxembourg, Malta, Slovakia, Sweden, even non-members of the EU like Norway, Switzerland and Liechtenstein have all said, we are not prepared to accept more immigration, and we want something done about deportations. Now, how long they can hang on, difficult to know. But in Denmark, they have been doing a few things. They are deporting people. Not millions, but they have pursued some of the toughest immigration policies in Europe over the recent years. Of course, even the delightful British government said that their policies were extreme. Sweden and Germany as well were rather pleased that the Danes took this position, because it means that they can now quote a precedent. And talking about precedents, it's worth pointing out, when people say you can't just deport these people, well, you don't have to just deport them. You can maybe give them a time limit, like 5 years, to say we want you to go home. You can sell your properties, you can take whatever you've got, and you can get on a plane like an ordinary traveller, and you can go home. Or you can go wherever you want, as long as you go. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. There really isn't anything wrong with saying that. Because remember that we, the British, were asked or told to get out of all of our colonies because they could do it on their own. Well, of course, we knew that was a joke. We knew that was a big joke. But we did. We got out. And what did Mrs. Gandhi do when she got into power in India? She found that the civil service, which was vast, was largely still run by the British. She said, what are these people still doing here? These people have to go. And what did the left in India said? Well, you can't do that because everything will grind to a halt. It'll all be shocking and terrible. You have to give them a time limit and everything. And she said, there's no time limit. They've got to get out now. Nobody said anything. British government didn't say anything. Nobody said a thing. Fine. So these are all precedents. Needless to say, the greatest precedent of the 20th century, or two precedents, is the expulsion of the Muslims from India to the two Pakistans, plus the Allies sitting back and just accepting the expulsion of 17 million German civilians from their homelands, where they'd lived for up to 1,000 years, from their farms, from their cities, cities like Danzig, which had 408,000 people living in it, and every one of those people were expelled, and many of them murdered, with nothing. They were expelled with nothing. Imagine going to York or somewhere like that and expelling the entire population. And all of these things have been done, for some people, in living memory. So there are plenty of examples that we can draw upon, plenty of precedents. We don't have to be horrible. We don't have to deal with that. We don't have to murder anyone. We don't have to take everything they own. They can all be given normal, human, decent conditions, but they still have to go. And that's the difference. And we need a radical government that is going to say, we agree, something has to be done. We cannot continue down this path. And one of the things that needs to be done in Britain is that we have to completely change the Nationality Act. The Nationality Act needs to be not only either completely repealed or drastically amended, and then it has to be retrospective to at least, say, 1980. So that people born in Britain are not necessarily British. Because, you know, I've got cousins who were born in Chile. They're not Chileans. We have family. We've all got family. I'm sure if you looked through your family trees, you'd find we've all got family who were born in India. I have members of my family who were not only born in India, but they married in India, and they died in India. But they all regarded themselves as British, and they had British passports. And of course, when Mrs. Gandhi came to clean out the last remaining ones, they all had to come home to their natural homeland. So I'm not asking for a Nazi solution here. I'm asking for a civilized solution. And the civilized solution must mean that your honeymoon's over and the time has come for you to go to your natural homeland and leave us, our natural homeland. And that's not just in Britain, but in Germany and in France and in the Netherlands and in Belgium, where all of these countries are absolutely inundated with people who are causing shocking crime levels, rapes, gang rapes, murders, knifings, you name it. And the reaction of our government here, when 3 of our lovely young little girls, 6, 8 and 9, get murdered in cold blood, and so there's a few riots and the people are getting upset and excited and saying enough's enough, this is just not on anymore. The government's response is to say, we are going to do something about immigration. Is that their response? No, that wasn't their response. Their response was to say, we are going to lock all these people up because they're really nasty fascists. So, you know, because they had a little demo, burned a car, shouted at a policeman. And is this the way forward? Is this the way forward? Is this what they're going to do every time? Every time the British people or the French people or the German people or any other people, anytime they suddenly rise up, have a demonstration that may develop into a riot, I don't know. But are the government just going to keep jailing all these people? We're going to keep locking them up. They'll have to reintroduce hulks. This is not the way forward. And I'm very pleased to see that the AFD and the FPO and now the Dutch government are openly calling for the remigration of aliens from their countries, because they can see this is the only option for the future of our nation. It's the only option. No other country across the world is carrying on like the Europeans. Imagine that I parachuted 12 million Caucasian British Europeans into Lagos. How do you think that'd go down? Think
the Nigerians would be very unhappy.
You think the Nigerians would be happy?
Unhappy.
Oh, do you think they'd be unhappy?
Unhappy.
Yeah, well, we're unhappy.
Yeah.
We're unhappy, and there's no country, I've already mentioned India, and there's no country that would accept, that is accepting, these stupid, vast rates of alien immigration. And it has to stop, and it has to be reversed. And people say, oh, well, we wouldn't be able to operate. You know, there'd be no, the underground would stop and everything. Okay, well, you know my answer to that? There's no gain without pain. And that's the way forward. And, you know, if we don't do something, it's all going to come crashing down on our, not our heads probably, but upon our children's heads and our grandchildren's heads. And people in Britain have to ask, is that going to be the legacy that we are leaving to our children and to our grandchildren? That's if they haven't been stabbed. Yes.
The problem is we can't absorb these people because only in limited numbers, because what it comes down to is culture is a product of temperament, and temperament is a product of stock, which is genetics and race. We are distinct peoples, and we can't assimilate people without destroying ourselves. That's it.
Culture is created by a people.
Yes.
Culture is created by the tribe, by our people. It's not created by others coming in. It's created by us, for us. We created our culture. So if you have another culture coming into your country and they're saying, well, this is our culture, we want to keep it in your country. No. This liberal wet dream of assimilation has got to be hit on the head. It's not the way forward. It'll never be the way forward because it is unrealistic and illogical.